Mr. Speaker.
I call Alfred Ngaro.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's an honour to stand and take a call on this public collections and, let me just put my glasses on, Solicitations Disclosure of Payment Bill in its first reading. I want to acknowledge my friend and colleague Matt Ducey. And again, it's always an honour for any MP, and especially when you're backbencher, to be able to have your private member's bill drawn. And so to Mr. Matt Ducey, I congratulate you on having that opportunity. There are many members that have been here for a long time who've never had a bill drawn. So that's why I have had one too as well. So it's an honour to be able to do that. I just want to make some comments that the previous speaker, Portal Williams, made some what I thought is slightly uncharitable comments about Mr. Ducey. About the fact is that does he not have anything better to do? Most private members' bills are actually small bills that make amendments to other pieces of legislation, or they introduce a small form of legislation around the chain. So while we're sort of talking about the big shifts and change, most private members' bills are not earth-shattering. They're not sort of moving the world in significant ways, but they do look at, and they do ask the right question, but I do want to take the point. The question is this: what is the mischief? What is the area of concern and need that needs to be changed or addressed in this bill? So this bill talks about the aspect of requiring all persons who are collecting or soliciting donations, subscriptions or signatures or other support for an organisation. In other words, it's wanting to ensure that there's some transparency. Now, the comments that have been made is that we have, yes, a strong volunteering organisation and a culture as part of New Zealand. We also too have a very charitable culture. Mr. Speaker, you probably remember that back in the days when we used to have the telethon. And, and we used to sort of go, and there were lots of sort of fundraising activities right up and down the country. And I remember that our family used to sort of go, and we all bunk into the sitting room and watch that 24-hour sort of cycle where people would raise money and they'd sing that song, "Thank you very much for your kind donation." And that's the sort of culture that New Zealand has, where even today, and just last year, there was $1.2 billion worth of funds that was raised by New Zealanders given to charities right up and down the country, both for purposes in New Zealand and also to abroad as well. So it shows that we have this culture that we want to protect, this culture not only of volunteerism, but also this culture of having a charitable nature. And this bill then is wanting to say this: though it's not trying to, and it won't address those who are volunteering for a charitable organisation, what it will do though is to protect those charitable dollars and those charitable funds that, and we've nicknamed them chuggers. In other words, they're people who, for devious reasons, who will turn around and try and take those charitable dollars that are meant for good intentions and may use it for their own. And that's the area of concern that Mr. Matt Ducey has actually raised here. It is an area of concern. We know it happens. Just for instance, just a couple of weeks ago, the Ronald McDonald House was robbed and families were in there. So what we thought was actually sacrosanct, places that we thought that were sacred, that were tapu to us, okay, it has a lot to do with the bill, because actually what it does, it talks about, Mr. Shearer, is about the volunteering aspect, the charitable areas of dollars that we spend, and how do we protect those who are most in need as well. And that's what this bill actually talks about, because the other parts of the bill also talks about this. It talks about subscriptions, it talks about signatures, and there was a concern at one time that there were potentially political parties that were using taxpayer-funded dollars to allow their staff to go out and potentially get signatures for petitions. Now, that's a concern that New Zealanders would have, because if they had not disclosed their intent, where they come from, the purpose for which they were gaining those signatures, then I think that the public needs to know whether there needs to be a disclosure, whether people need to be aware. So this bill has a good intent. I think, and it goes to first reading, we'll hear a variety of different submissions. I know that Mr. Matt Ducey will sort of be able to support that, and it's going to the Social Select Committee. And it'll be simple things like this, that if Mr. Matt Ducey went out into the public and he said that he was going to gain a subscription or some support, maybe even a signature, then he should be able to say, "Good morning, I'm Mr. Matt Ducey. I'm actually here on behalf of this organisation wanting to raise some funds or a subscription," and be able to declare that so it's transparent. There's nothing hard or difficult about that, but what that does do, it creates a sense of honesty about the intent and the purpose for which that person is gaining, or the organisation. So look, Mr. Speaker, I support this bill. to Select Committee. I look forward to the submissions. Look, there won't be hordes of submissions, but there'll be enough that turn around and say, look, there is a concern here. We should make sure that we protect those charitable dollars. Like I say, $1.2 billion of charitable funds that go out to our communities. And yes, it is. It's the surf life-saving groups. It's the hospices that I went to a fashion show in Te Atatu Community Centre just last weekend. You know, it's organisations that provide much needed service.
I apologise. I was distracted. The member's time expired some time ago.